No. What's your question?
Okay, so I was just telling Maya, I have a whole bunch of questions. Okay, the first one is, can couples, relationships, can they, what was it, rather me than you? Like, I would rather die than bow to you. Is that the one? Is that how we say it? Rather me than
I
you?
haven't seen that yet.
So, but could it potentially? But you haven't seen it, but probably not. Like, they'd rather me than you.
Everything can be, but rather me than you needs to be 3, of course. So that would be an entanglement with a partner then, right?
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. And then the other one was the schizophrenia. You mentioned something about entangled with more than one person with opposing dynamics. I was just wondering if you could give an example of what that might
That
look
is
like.
exactly what is in the video that I mentioned to you on the community training site. Watch the video and then you will understand.
I tried really hard to figure out how to log into the YouTube videos, and I haven't been able to access any of them. And I do have a YouTube account, so
What do you
I don't
mean?
know why.
What have you not accessed? What are you talking about?
On
Start
that,
at the
on your
beginning. Start at the beginning. Are you able to access the community site?
yes.
Okay. When you access the community site, you go to the general chat. Hang on, I show you that quickly.
I've been on it and I've gotten as far as to the videos, but it won't show. It won't display them for
So let me just log in and I show you. Because for that, you don't need to be logged in at all. So, okay, let me just share the screen. All right, so here's the community site. Yeah, you're logged in there, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Then you go to the general chat over here, Family Constellation Virtual Training Community. Yeah?
Yes.
Go in there. Then you scroll down and you see Berthe Hellinger videos.
Mhm.
And when you further scroll down, you see Dealing with Schizophrenia.
Mhm.
So you can go in either. You can go in that. And there is a video linked. Yeah?
Mhm.
Here. Click on that and it will just play.
Okay, and I don't have to be logged into my account.
No.
Okay. So that might be just for your recordings then.
Hmm?
For your recordings of the
Yes,
class,
for the recordings.
that might be for the recordings of the class that you have to be logged
Exactly.
into your account. Yeah, okay. That's the one that's not working. So
Okay, so then I show you that. So that's the normal videos, and there are a bunch of videos that you need to watch.
yeah, I
Let's go
watched this
back.
one. I've seen
Yeah.
this one.
Okay, so then you know that's answering your question, really. So now let's go back to the community page. And then you go to your group.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hang on. Who are you? Moho or Hoiho?
Hoiho.
Hoiho. So you go to your group. You're signed in for that. You go to video recordings. And yeah, it says here you need to log in with your Gmail address to the Chrome Google browser. So your YouTube channel with the same Gmail address is registered, right? When you have a Gmail address, you know, you're automatically
Yeah,
registered.
that's what I did. I did that part.
Yeah.
I have
So
both Gmail and a YouTube account.
yeah, so you have to log in already.
Yep.
Because it's opening automatically with your Gmail, because this link just opens automatically on the same browser. So you use a Chrome browser already for
Yeah.
your
Do you have
accessing
any
the
issues
community
or
site,
no?
and then you click on this link, and then it will play.
Yeah. Well, that's what I did, but it didn't play.
When it
That's
doesn't play, it will say this video is private, just means you are not registered with your Gmail.
okay. Well,
Right?
I don't know how else to register with it.
You just need to use a Chrome browser.
That's what I do. I'm doing that. I'm doing my with my own account, my Chrome. But I'll try it again, and if it doesn't work again, then I'll let you know. I
Very
don't want to waste
strange.
this.
I
Yeah.
there's no other reason for that, right? So absolutely, there's no other reason. Zuman, did you access the videos?
Yes, I did. And I mean, not that this is a concern of anyone's, but I've been meaning to switch my Yahoo to Gmail. So this just pushed me to do it even more. But
Not having problems.
I am able to access all the videos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Try again.
So Kimberly, just to make it 100% clear, send me your Gmail again.
Mhm.
Maybe I had a trainee who weirdly had 2 Gmails, and I only had one, and she always uses the other, so that was her problem. So send me your Gmail again,
Okay.
and then if you have 2 for some reason, delete 1 because this is very confusing.
See what
Okay,
happens.
right. Okay,
Okay.
so what's your next question?
So a scenario of a constellation. Let's say there's a father and a mother that has a daughter, and the daughter, I guess this was a constellation did for me where the entanglement was with their daughter, which was my great aunt, who was supposed to marry this guy. And her father said, no, I want you to stay home and take care of us. And I was in, and so she didn't. I'm just trying to understand, is that an interrupted movement?
No.
What would that
So
have?
just go back. When the father says you can't marry, you have to stay home and look after us. What violation of which order is this?
It would be order, the
Which
precedence,
violation of
is it
which?
the order of
Yes, the order of precedence, exactly. So we have a violation of the order of precedence, right? That is a traumatic experience for the daughter that the family soul will store and not tolerate. Yeah?
Yeah.
Right. So what is happening that one of the descendants will pick up on that imbalance and will be entangled or can be entangled with the daughter. Yeah, and show signs of symptoms, whatever it is. Could be anything, really, right? Now we have 3 persons here, 3 family members. We have the daughter, we have the descendant who's entangled, and we have the father, who was kind of who didn't obey the order, right? So that's very clear. So that is a clear entanglement. Now she can either be in the dynamic, I follow you, or rather me than you. We don't know that until we see it. We don't know how she, in a family constellation, you would see how the representatives act, look. That's what you see.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually, this was what I was working on when I was telling you I started working on something, and I just got off the phone with my aunt that confirmed that's what happened. That was what that showed itself, and she just confirmed to me that that's what happened. And so I'm trying to understand, what it was. What am I seeing? What was just revealed to me?
You can always analyze it, or you should always analyze it and categorize this in, where does it go?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand where
Very
it
good.
goes. Yeah, thank you.
And the next question?
That's all I got.
Okay, cool, awesome. Right, so then let's start with our today's teaching content. Okay, here we are. So today we are looking at two strong words, thank you. It's actually one word. And in the parallel group, we have 4 different countries and 4 different mother tongues. And it was really interesting to learn that in all of them, including 5 actually, including me, German, that in all of them, thank you is one word, not 2. Only in English it is 2. I don't know why. But you can say thanks, I suppose. You can say thanks. So it is, we are talking about thank you today and more. So what we're talking today is about is the morphogenetic field. We are talking about the morphogenetic field resonance, or the morphic field resonance healing, MFRH. The word thank you is in our focus today. The dynamic, the third dynamic, I follow you. We are talking about trauma, in specific, the emotional trauma we will deal with in family constellations. And we finally talk about that, what actually means, that are words, gestures, eyes, and movements. So the morphogenetic field is defined or discovered by Rupert Sheldrake. Have you heard of Dr. Rupert Sheldrake?
I have not.
He's an amazing biologist from London, and he has worked also in at one stage closely with Bert Hellinger, because he has discovered this phenomenon in the natural world with crystals and with animals, that then is called the morphogenetic field. That is also called the field of information, where a certain group of animals are accessing the field at once and get the information at once, and that allows them to do some magical things, like a flock of birds in the millions turning at the same moment, changing direction, or school of fish doing the same. They all can do that only because they are all accessing an information that says turn right now at the exactly same time from their field. Of course, when you don't think about it, when you never contemplate on how they actually do that, you might think, oh, they just communicate with each other, right? Now, we all know communication takes time. So if one bird says to the next bird, change left, what do you think what happens at the millionth ones at the other end of the flock? That would be an hour later, right? So they cannot possibly, under any circumstances, communicate about this change of direction to each other. This is how Rupert Sheldrake has discovered that there is a governing field which holds the information, which is telling them what to do. One is feeding the information in, and all receive them at the same time. It's absolutely fascinating. The fascinating thing is also that he discovered that even if a skill is learned, there was an island with apes, with monkeys, somewhere, I don't know where that was, completely secluded, no people, no traffic, nothing. And these monkeys were also on maybe Pacific Islands, I don't know, on different islands. They had no ways of traveling to each other or communicating. And then they have conducted experiments. So one island, the apes on one island, they have learned a tool, to use a tool to open nuts or something, coconut or something, is a rock or something. That was new to them, so they learned that. And then it has been observed that the other island apes shortly after started to do the same. So they had got this information to use a tool to access this food easier from this knowing field, from this informing field. And this is then, with the work of Bert Hellinger, came to Rupert Sheldrake's attention that this phenomenon also applies to humans, right? So that this is also seen in a family constellation. And so they got together and exchanged their ideas. And so this is also why you can, what you are learning here is not, how can I put it? It's not esoteric or anything. It's very it's like astrology. It's very scientific. It is not woohoo. Not, you don't need to be intuitive. It's really scientific. It's based on science in the true meaning. In the true meaning, observation in nature. Yeah, drawing your conclusion, using it all over again, and it always works without any exemption, right? So that is what we call the scientific method, and that's what you get here. So instead of me talking too much about what Rupert Sheldrake has discovered, I'd rather share a short video with him, from him. So let me just bring that up again. I have it here. Now probably I shared after the ad has after the ad has run. That's always annoying. Okay, so why is it not coming up? Okay, here we go. Let me just wait a few seconds and then I share it. So okay, be right there. Okay. Here you go.
Morphic resonance is a connection across time from the past to the present. And it's a process that occurs between organized patterns of activity on the basis of similarity. What it means, in effect, is that each species has a kind of collective memory. So every giraffe tunes in by morphic resonance to the form and to the behavior of previous giraffes. Every crystal, as it crystallizes, tunes in to the way that previous crystals of the same chemical crystallized in the past. So there's a kind of memory given by morphic resonance in all kinds of things. And in the realm of animal behavior, for example, it leads to quite striking predictions. If rats learn a new trick here in London, then rats all around the world should be able to learn the same trick quicker, just because the rats have learned it here. The more that learn it, the easier it should get everywhere else. And there's already evidence that this actually happens from studies of rats in laboratories. When lots of rats have learned something, other rats all around the world find it easier to learn. And this doesn't depend on any normal kind of connection between the different rats or the places. It happens because of morphic resonance on the basis of similarity. The same applies to crystals. When a new chemical is made for the first time, it's usually very hard to crystallize it. And as time goes on, it gets easier to crystallize all around the world. And I think the reason for this is that morphic resonance connects up the crystals so they tune into a kind of collective memory. So morphic resonance works through morphic fields, the organizing fields of chemicals and biological systems. And the word morphic comes from the Greek word for form. So it's a kind of resonance to do with form, pattern, and organization.
So, okay, where is it now? Gone. Oh, hang on. Playing in the background. I can't find it. Where the heck? That's so strange. Okay. Here we go. Okay, got it. So, okay, so that was a brief introduction into morphic resonance. He has also a video on YouTube about family constellation and how that works. So that's longer. I don't want to share that here with you. Takes up too much time, but definitely worth watching. Yeah. So find that on YouTube and make a cup of coffee or tea and enjoy his talk about family constellation and morphic resonance. So, how it works in family constellation is pretty much what he has described. The field is defined by the system, and the system is the family. Yeah, and what is defining the family as a family system is the first order of love, belonging, who belongs. And then once a system is formed, then information are fed to the field that others then can access to. Two important information here. First of all, only the information are stored that are traumatic. Yeah. So you were wondering maybe why representatives really almost always pick up the traumatic experiences and barely any happy times of the family. That is because that is not necessary to be stored. That's not the purpose of the family soul. The purpose of the family soul is to store traumatic experiences, to reveal them through descendants, so they can be solved. Because what the family soul is striving to is, like every other soul, is completeness. Yeah, and wants completeness, and that also means to shed any negative emotion, to come into higher frequencies where it can move on, right? Lower frequencies holding souls close to, let's say, Earth, to the physical, and higher frequencies allowing them to move on. And that is what the family soul also wants. Yeah. And this is why it stores only the traumatic experiences, and the positive or the loving experiences from the family, they are like food, right? They are digested. That's where the family lives out from, right? That's the love that flows. That doesn't need to be stored as an information of a specific happening in the past. And then the second interesting thing is on top that, other than in the natural world, which Rupert Shardik just reported about, in the human world, people can represent other family members. So they can tap into the same field without being a family member, a family system member, by temporarily being in the field. And that is not random. That is also organized, because otherwise you would go, you would just go in LA on a busy road, and you would pick up from hundreds of family systems all their traumas. Like, you could not even walk anywhere where other people are, So you cannot involuntarily pick up this information from the field. That needs to be opened up by the family system. Sometimes you do, maybe weirdly, but that's rare. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to live a normal life, right? So, what is needed to access this information from the morphogenetic field is participation in a workshop setting, for example, and the intent to help, the intent to do it, right? These two things have to come together. Otherwise, the family soul would not consider you as somebody who can temporarily step into the field and access the information. Yes, Suman.
Maya, I'm curious, when I've participated or been a witness to family constellations, and when you mentioned yesterday one-on-one work,
Yeah.
is the emphasis of family constellations to create a group atmosphere, or do you find it even more powerful, or at least equal, one-on-one?
That's a good question. So first of all, Bert Hellinger has not, to my knowledge, done one-on-one sessions. He had
Okay.
on very rare occasions, more like, I don't know what he has done. He has never talked about it. Has received visitors on very rare occasions. I don't know what he has done with them. But for him, family constellation was a workshop only setting. Yeah.
Okay.
And he has never taught one-on-ones. He has never taught figurines. He has never, ever talked about that. Ever. Right? So people representing, connecting to the field, that's the work. However, his wife, Sophie Hellinger, she has also taught us to use objects instead of people.
Oh.
But it was more or less still in a group setting. So even in a small group, for example, and I did that when I started, because you only have small groups when you started. You don't have not even 10 people coming. You might have 2 or 3, yeah, can gather some friends and families. So what you can do is you can use pillows, or I once used the shoes that the participants took off at the door as a representative. That all works. And we will talk about that all in module 5. That's completely different way to work. I just want to convey, your telling hasn't done it. Yeah, I do it. I know a lot of people who do it. I think it works fantastic. You definitely access the morphogenetic field. There's no doubt about it, because you're working with the client and their family system, and there comes the opening into the field, right? And it is not that the objects are resonating with the field. It is that your client or yourself, you are resonating with the field, and the objects are making it visual. So I can also do one-on-one without any objects, just internal work. That's all. I will teach you that in module 5. That's also possible.
Okay. I figure. Okay.
So, so that's what I can say. Just last word on that. For me, both methods are very strong and different. So I always recommend one-on-one clients come on the workshops. And it has a different angle to the work. You know, it is very enlightening to have others actually talking or looking like somebody you know, especially for people who are not so open. But you definitely help people with one-on-ones as well. So yeah, definitely worth doing it.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the video that you can look up about family constellation. The morphogenetic field is also sometimes called the informing field, yeah, or the field of information. Same thing as far as I know. MFRH is the abbreviation for morphic field resonance healing. I don't think it's an official abbreviation. Maybe I even made it up. I'm not quite sure if it's used, but for me that was kind of an explanation how we work. So when I've asked how does it work, then I like to say I'm working with MFRH, and then people are normally quiet because it sounds so scientific, which it is, yeah. So that is just the explanation how we are using morphogenetic field resonance for healing. Yeah, because you can use, as Rupert Sheldrake just explained, morphogenetic field or morphic field resonance like the animals do for day-to-day tasks. Yeah, day-to-day tasks. We use it for healing. That's just our twist on it. Yeah. And we also, this is opening up a little bit more because there are kind of some crossovers between family constellation and other modality. I for example, like to use it also for regressions, past life regressions, or early childhood trauma regressions, or for rebirthing sessions. And in my experience, this is also possible through resonating with the morphic field. So I think this term is a little bit broader than just family constellation. That's, yeah, and how it resonates with people that I just said, intent and participation, not random, not involuntary. And now often the question comes from my trainees, what is if I have a participant who doesn't resonate, right? Do you want to
Just
ask
going to
that,
ask.
Dylan? Yeah. Of course. What is? So the thing is, they all resonate, they just don't realize it. Yeah. So you cannot not resonate. So I give you an example from a workshop. No, it wasn't a workshop. It was a talk. It was a free talk in Wellington, our capital city here in New York. We had about 30 people there to our free talk to introduce family constellation, and which is really not very well known in New Zealand, by the way. And so I made a demonstration, or there were people coming with other people. Some were interested, some were just accompanying a partner, or things like that. Didn't know what to expect. So we had this constellation as a demonstration, which always turns out, of course, to be a full-fledged constellation because you cannot really play with the field. And then I asked one of the blokes who came, to stand up and represent, and he was a bit awkward, and he stood up, and his partner was obviously the one who was interested. He wasn't. He was a little bit nervous that he's been picked. So he stood up, and then he stand there, and I observed him, and then I asked him how he felt, and he said, "I'm so sorry to say I feel nothing. Can I sit down again?" And I said, no, you don't sit down. You're representing, and that's all good. That's and he felt so awkward. He was looking around, and you would clearly think, oh my gosh, I should take another one. Yeah. But of course I didn't, because I trust in the field. And then it turns out that we need another man for the constellation. So I asked another man to come up, and he was exactly the same. He felt a little bit awkward. He tried really hard, and then he said, I feel nothing. I feel nothing. And then turns out we need another man. So we had multiple generation of men in this constellation. And as I now expected, also the next one didn't feel anything. Yeah. And so it went on. So I picked men after men after men, and they all felt nothing, right? And we were 1, 2, 3. I think we were at the 6th generation when not I, but the field, if you will, picked a man who finally felt something. So he said, "Oh gosh, I feel so much affection to this person in front of me," right? And all the 5, they were a bit awkward. What is he talking about? Oh, and and then I of course I saw that it's an interrupted movement within the father, the paternal line. So I turned the one before him who thought he wasn't connected and just standing around like a piece of rock or something. And then I turned him around and let him say please to him, to the other representative, right? And he said, please, and his tears ran, right? He couldn't just hold it back. And so, he had to go on his knees and the whole thing. And the others were watching that. And then he came up again and turned around and was looking, like newborn, like they do, and said, oh my gosh, now I feel so much love to this other man, right? And that was the whole man line. We went through to the last one who was the first, and he had the same, right? And so this was just the best example I ever had to show that everyone is connected to the field. If somebody says, I feel nothing, I'm in the wrong place, that's exactly the information that the field is giving for you as a hint what dynamic is here at play and what is broken. That's the information. Yeah. And that goes as well for people who say, oh, I think I have a headache, but I think it's mine. I think I came already with a headache. Yeah. What do you think as a facilitator? Are you asking her to sit down and take somebody else? No. Because that's why she's been chosen. It has to reveal the headache. Yeah. So you will have over and over again new representatives who think they are not representing. And that's totally fine. They will always represent, always, without any exemption. Only they don't know it. That's all. Yeah. So that's also what we talk about then the next module, about leading the group and leading the representatives, the clients, and all of that, right? You always have, you are the one who knows. You are not following, you are the one who knows. You're not following somebody else's energy or thought concept, or, you're not following that. This is probably different to psychotherapy, where you try to, I'm not sure because I haven't done it, but I assume it's you try to follow along what they think and how they, that's different work. You don't. You don't follow along. You know what to do, and you are looking for what the field is doing. No? And the persons are not important, and what they think and what they struggle with. In the moment they are representing a family member, they are helpers. And they don't exist anymore as a person. You don't need to worry about them at all. You don't even see that. They are not a person anymore. Yeah. They are a family member of the family system. Okay.
I've quite a few questions, Maya, but I feel like this opportunity of what you just covered, as you mentioned, the bulk of it is in module 3. So I'll hold off on my questions. It was leaning into sort of what you were talking about, and the word for me that came up was the confidence I know I have going into a psychotherapy session versus the confidence you hold as a family constellations facilitator. That's just such a new, like, oh, I get to work with the core of me to bring this. So
yes, that's
I'll
good.
wait till module
I'm looking
3.
forward. I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to module 3 and discuss all this with you. It's very interesting. Yeah, I think it's very different to what you both know in working with clients. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So the morphic field is out of time and space. There is no time and space. Why do we know that? Because we see dead people alive, coming alive in a family constellation. They could be from Russia and they appear in a constellation in America, So totally, for the morphic field, no difference. Absolutely no difference. There is no time and space. It's the same with thoughts, emotions. We are living these unseen forces to 90% in our life, and we are not even realizing it. That all of that, what is part of our reality, is unseen and out of time and space. Yeah. So when you have a thought, the thought is gone. This is out there. Yeah. You can't take it back. It will be there forever. It's never going back. Other can access it. It has it's not bound to any country, to any time. It's just there. Same with emotions, right? So that is so interesting, that if you never contemplate on that, yeah, that you kind of think, oh, everything that's in the unseen is woohoo. In fact, you're living with is to 90%, 95% of your time on a daily basis. And then the nights, and then the dreams, and that goes on and on, right? Everything is unseen. Yeah, other the food we eat. Yeah. Or the computer we turn on and off. But even the information that the computer gives us is already coming from magically through little cable. Like, how does it even work? Not even cables, Wi-Fi. This is unseen. This is all unseen. Electricity is unseen. Radio waves, everything. So it's really nothing new. And I'm always surprised that if I talk with people about family constellation, that they really think that they cannot get their head around, how you can access information without getting a letter or something like this, or an email. It's interesting. So outside of time and space, not a new concept. The whole world is made out of this. And that's just one specific field that we are working with as family constellation facilitator. So words and gestures heal in the field because the information that you receive as a representative is going back as well. So let's say you got the traumatic experience. Let's say the hurt. That's an information from the field somebody's resonating with. Now words and gestures, everything you learn, finding what meant, yeah, is letting the love flow again. Now this is a new information. Instead hurt, it's love. Yeah. Now the love information feeds back into the field, same way it came from, and it overrides the hurt. It's like you are downloading your document from your cloud, you're working on it, you change words, you upload it to the cloud again. It's new. The new informations are there, not the old. Next time you download the document, you only get the altered document, not the original one, right? So that's exactly how the morphogenetic field works. And this is why healing takes place. Because now it's a love is the information, not the hurt, and love becomes nourishment for the soul, gives it a higher vibration, and less bound to the physicality through lower vibrating energies, and the order is restored. And that is also why death doesn't matter, because there is no time, there is no space, and as we see. So that is interesting. I have in the other group, which we will merge that at one stage, so you will get to know them all. We have a lovely woman. She's in London, and she's in Islam. She's what do you say, Islamic, and religious, and she asked a question about the soul. I don't know Islam very well, so I don't want to discuss or argue anything religious, because of course I don't have the knowledge. So she asked something about the soul and the reincarnation. It sounded to me as if in her religion they don't believe in that. I'm not quite sure if that is the case, but it sounded to me like this. And then I just said, and that's for everybody, it doesn't matter your religion, what your belief system is. This is a method that you can etymologically prove. And you can draw your own conclusion, but your religion can be completely parallel. You know, this is, you cannot mix that up. So we see in a constellation, literally see the souls from passed on people. Yeah, we see them. And we also see, when you look really closely, the same soul represented in different family members sometimes. Yeah. So that is, for me, evidence, not only that, but that is for me evidence that souls are traveling through time, yeah, and that they live on after the death. So that's for me evidence. But it doesn't need to be for anybody else. It's just we need to apply these facts in our work in order to work with it, because this is how Bert Hellinger works. We don't need to believe in anything. Yeah, I just make that clear. We don't need to believe in anything, but we can also not dismiss it, because it shows itself, and we work with it. Yeah. And then we can, whatever belief system we have, we can, in our religious practice or with our family, we can do that. But if we are facilitating family constellations, working with it, then we are stepping in other shoes. As easy as that. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the words thank you. So thank you is, of course, gratitude. We know that. We say that mostly for gratitude in our daily life, right? That's what we do. Thank you for passing the butter at the breakfast table. Or thank you for giving me the seat on the bus, or something like that. Yeah. But it's also an act of giving. And in English, I like that. It's actually a sentence, giving thanks to. makes it clear that thanking is an act of giving. You give your thanks to somebody. As opposed to please, it's an act of receiving. Yeah. So please and thank you go hand in hand. First of all, you receive with a please, and then you give back your gratitude for what you have received with a thank you. And this is how you balance out the relationship. So the please comes with a thank you in the case where you want to balance out a relationship to leave the relationship, if you will. You want to leave it balanced and move on to something else. And this is where we need the thank you for in family constellation, mainly to balancing out when things need to be balanced out and to move on. So in fact, the thank you is cutting the cords or the bond that is established with the please. So you can do that deliberately or not. You can deliberately not cut the bond. And of course, there are bonds that cannot be cut. For example, between the family members. That was always there. Yeah? The family members are bound together by the children. It's the same in a relationship. When there is a relationship with children, you can leave the relationship, but you cannot cut the bond because the bond is through the children. Mutual children, not adopted children, just mutual biologically children. If there are no children in the relationship, yes, you can cut the bond completely. That's no problem if that's what's been needed. Yeah. So we apply thank you to acknowledge someone, or that is more the balancing out what they have done for you, what they have given you, what you have received from them. We are applying thank you when we want to leave. Yeah. Let's say there is a relationship and the partner is still clinging, but your client really wants to move on. Yeah. Then what really needs to be said here is a thank you. And the thank you doesn't need to come from both. If the other partner is not ready yet, that doesn't mean that the client has to stay, but the client has to say thank you if they're really interested in leaving the relationship, like from the heart, of course. Yeah. Breaking the chains with a relationship that you can actually break the chain, not within close family members, yeah, or ancestors. But you can do that. Closing a relationship, I just reported on that. Yeah. You say also thank you towards the parent if you are grown up. Yeah. You can say thank you for everything I got from you. That's not breaking the chain in this case. Yeah, but it's just balancing out. That's a balance out for what has been received. The child is not in the position to give anything back other than the gratitude and the honor and respect. Yeah. So remember, flow of love from parents to children, from children to parents, honor and respect. This, as we said last time with the please, this can only happen if the please is kind of exhausted, if the please was there before. If the please has been applied to an extent that there is nothing left to say. There is no boundary. The child is not traumatized. There is no interrupted movement to the parent. There is a full please to the parent. Yeah. When this is kind of done, this work, then the thank you is the next step to grow up, walk away, choose their own partner, having their own child. This is also a step that when you have constellations with child wish is very important, that you make sure that they are ready to found their own family because they have received everything they need from their parents, both partners. Also maybe a problem of this growing infertility rate, not only environmental reasons for that, but also all these through this, how can I put it, through this medical taken over birth process. I think that the interrupted movements are so embedded into pretty much everyone now, yeah, that is hard for them to grow up and hard for them to become their own children as well. That seems to me a little bit going hand in hand with the environmental challenges on a biology level, biochemical level of the human. So that's a good. That's always something to look at when you have these infertility cases in a family constellation. And I love it, not because I started my journey with my own infertility case, but also when I have clients, the success rate is so high when you have family constellation, much higher than IVF or anything like that. Yeah. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't do IVF. They should, because there are still these environmental challenges. But we all know IVF is not always working, right? The rate is not very high. So if you combine IVF and family constellation, the success rate goes really, really up for conceiving a child. So and then before I forget it, I want to mention, you might see me, and you will see me, that in a family constellation, when I facilitate and there's an interrupted movement, the please is there, then I let them say after the please, when they have been able to get to their mother and receive the love, then I let them say thank you, although that might be too early, but that is a reason for that. It's kind of the little thank you. It's not the thank you, I leave, I leave you and do my own thing. It's a step towards interrupted movement in multiple generations. Because without the thank you, I have now, that's like the balancing out, yeah? It is hard for them to turn around and face their own children, yeah? So the thank you, when you're working with multiple generations of interrupted movements, all the way up 7 generations, there is always a please and then the thank you. So it can continue, So you don't let the representative of the child in the state of receiving, because now it has to give to their children, yeah? And in order to be able to come in the state of giving, the receiving needs to be balanced out. So this is why then there comes a thank you. I have now received everything I need. But that doesn't mean, if it comes up in another constellation with the same client again, that it's not repeating itself. So you cannot assume there is never a please again in this, in this family member. That can happen again. Yeah. So it's not a one way. It's not like all the pleases has to come and then the first thank you has to come. So the please can come, and then the thank you can come, and then half a year later the please can come again, and then and that happens very often. Interrupted movements are not done often in one go. That's just not how it works. Yeah. Every time it's the next step, and I think I haven't actually didn't really think about it in detail, but it looks to me that probably every step is an own interrupted movement. It's like, you have several interrupted movements in your life, and then every time you step and go towards your mother, you are releasing another movement, interruption, and come into a new movement. So this is why this repetition is absolutely okay and will happen and is helping and is very healing. Yeah. So when we say thank you from the child to the parent, the obvious thing is to say thank you for giving me life. Obviously, that's the one. Thank you for giving me life. And that's especially important when you have an abusive relationship where the client is really resentful towards the parent, to say thank you. Yeah, because they have done the please, they have been able to let go of their trauma, they have been able to receive the love, but now there's another hurdle in the head, if you will, to say thank you, because they may have been beaten up or whatnot. Yeah, of course they cannot say thank you to that. And that's not what that means. So you have to use this carefully, the thank you, so the soul can actually agree with it. And that would be thank you for giving me life, because that's true, right? And not just a thank you. If it's just a thank you in a difficult relationship, it might be not received well by the representative of the child. Yeah. Thank you for nourishing me. Yeah. If that was the case. Or thank you for always being there for me. If that was the case, it must always be true, right? These are not just a sentence that you pour out when they are not true. Thank you for caring for me is another thank you. Thank you for my life. If that is like the abusive situation, I leave everything else with you and your responsibility. That's important to say. Yeah, because you definitely don't want to thank somebody for opposing their aggression and negativity and hurt on a child. That's not what we do. This is also why we don't say thank you in the victim-perpetrator relationship, right? This about the same situation. Or if we do that very carefully, wording the using care for the words. I will stay is also a thank you when the child is entangled, for example, yeah, and then lets the entangler go. That could be a parent, yeah, the parent has passed away, and then the child says thank you, but I will stay, because they still have their life to live. And also a nice thank you is by living my life to the fullest, I honor your life and your death and your destiny. That's also a very nice way to say in this situation. Thank you. The thank you in relationship is, as you know, thank you is not coming from the parent to the children. So this is why we're not talking about that. There is absolutely no room for a thank you in a family constellation, not in real life, of course, but in a family constellation. In a relationship, it would be a good sentence to suggest to say, thank you for everything I've received from you. This is, leaving a relationship with a thank you. You may keep what you've received from me if you wish, because you don't know, they might want, they might don't want. I take responsibility for my part in our separation and leave you with the responsibility for your part. Yeah. And then you might or might not suggest to say, I give you a place in my heart. Especially then when the other partner has a hard time to let go, the one who wants to leave, then this is a healing aspect or a healing sentence that can be used, but only if he or she wants to say it. If they say, no, I don't want to, then not. Right? If there are no children, they can leave without a trace. Yeah. And then, of course, when there are children, then there's only one thing to say, and that's thank you for our children. Because obviously without the partner, they wouldn't exist. And you can also add, and through our children, we will always be connected. Yeah. That's also possible.
I have a question, Maya.
Yeah.
With what we constellated yesterday and with what I shared, knowing what I experienced and what I went through, or what I decided to do, I should say, do I then continue to have a connection with the father, or what would have been the father of this child that was aborted?
That's a good question. Yes, the child is connecting you with the father. The connection would be more subtle, of course, because there is no care for a child. Yeah. And you definitely, as you can see, so this is why if you don't want a connection to the father, you can still say thank you for our child, because it has been created, yeah, even if it
Yeah.
didn't live for very long. And everything else I leave with you.
Okay.
Like every emotion or what was going on or everything that you don't want, you can leave with them. Yeah.
That
The
makes sense. Okay.
gratitude is only for that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's really hard to say. You see it in a family. Let's assume there is a woman has been raped, yeah, and she aborted the child, the child, right? And then it comes to a family constellation, and you can see the child is acting like that, very sad and hurt, yeah. We go through that like a normal constellation. We are not considering it was a rape, yeah. I mean, that's not what we do. We are acknowledging that this child was created, it was destiny, and and everybody takes over their response. Everything is fine, everything can be solved. In real life, however, that is different. So in real life, you wouldn't say thank you to the rapist, and that's not necessary. It's not necessary. It's you want to but you have to acknowledge there is some weird sort of destiny that this has happened to your client, yeah, and we cannot deny that. So there needs to be a yes. There needs to be a yes. I acknowledge it was my destiny. Acknowledge it was just what it is, yeah. There doesn't need to be a thank you, if you will, with the acknowledgement that, and not fighting it, because this fighting it is kind of connecting them more and creating more bond, or hating even, or anything like this, yeah. But if agreeing to the destiny, acknowledging what it is already released, if you will, everything that can be released. So in a day, definitely in a daily, and if you think about it on a day-to-day basis, you wouldn't use the word thank you. I probably even wouldn't use the word thank you in a family constellation, more the yes as well, rather towards the rapist, rather than the thank you. But I can think of circumstances that I can see that might be necessary to say the thank you if something needs to be balanced out there.
Yeah. I can
So
see just how the acknowledgement in itself is already such a powerful thing, where someone who is a victim of that psychologically could sort of sit with it a little bit, but have such a struggle showing up here if they weren't ready or familiar with this work. Like, I can see
totally,
how
of course.
challenging. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. And there, I'm sure you find a way to be there, very mindful. If somebody comes to family, so in your work, when somebody wants therapy, right? You cannot, I suppose you cannot just do a family constellation. They need to want that. If the other way around, if somebody comes to a workshop that you are facilitating, and it turns out that it is a victim of a rape and has an aborted child, yeah, then you can work with the full toolbox of family constellation, because that's what they want. You don't need to think from a psychology standpoint. I've been asked once, that comes to my mind. I've been asked once, family constellation, is that not counterproductive because you are re-traumatizing the people, right? That's a thing in psychotherapy, isn't it? Re-traumatizing people.
Yeah.
No, of course it's not, right? Because we are working with traumas that have taken place often, or to 99%, in former generations. There is nobody to re-traumatize, right? We don't have very often an original trauma in the client. More often it is in the family system somewhere that is hidden, and the one who is coming is just repeating a trauma. Yeah, and therefore we cannot re-traumatize them, because they wouldn't have the trauma if the original trauma wouldn't have happened, which they are, you know, entangled with. And so if that is cleared, their trauma is also cleared, right? So this is why I can't see how you can and I've never seen it, by the way, how you can re-traumatize somebody in a family constellation. I don't think that works. But I don't know much about the work of a psychotherapist, so I don't know how you would tackle that in that situation. But I'm sure you find a way to combine that in a way that is helping your clients.
Yeah, I think you said it so perfectly just right now, Maya, like the context of someone who has been raped. I mean, if we're going to even talk about the energetic field, their context of what they're showing up for is not in the space of what even the context of family constellations is.
Yeah.
So it's so visceral that it's just a different pivot of looking at it. So yeah, I don't see how they would also be re-traumatized in family constellations, because it's different context.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's very interesting. I think it's very interesting to see. I know that a lot of psychotherapists in Germany are using family constellation, no doubt, mainly with figurine boards, or some do workshops with their clients. That would be something that you could do, Suman. You can gather from your clientele a group that you do an intro with in family constellation, like, you know, in a year or two, you know, free talk, something like
Much
that.
more practice. I can see how the practice of sand tray figurines and combining, not even combining, but using the figurines with what you would do in a psychological modality with sand tray, and bringing that all together, that would be very powerful. Yeah.
Well, you can definitely use also the figurines for in your classical education to make visible what you're talking about. What I think wouldn't work is to mix it up, like you already said. They have different You stay with what you have learned. Here's psychotherapy, here's family constellation. I think more, if you are introducing family constellation in a free talk to all your clientele and who is intrigued in this work, you would invite to a workshop.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and then you see how it goes, and then you might have monthly workshops with your client or something, or every half year or whatnot. You know, you are creating this environment of and they get educated from you, the difference of family constellation therapy, and they experience something new that they haven't had before, and they don't get with their therapist neither. So it's an add-on to your work. That's how I see it.
And I can see how, like, with that wisdom, and I know we'll talk about this much more in module 3, just that inner confidence of showing up and making sure those roles are very separated, because it can get messy quickly.
I think so. Yeah. I have never seen that really successfully combined, like meshed up. Yeah. I doubt it, and I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah. That's the same with Kimberly's work, of course, with astrology, right? It's a perfect addition, but there needs to be this kind of where does family constellation starts and ends decision, right? How do I do that with my client?
I can even see just the person feeling dismissed of, if you just put this into if it's someone who has been traumatized or raped, if we will, using that word, how they can feel so dismissed in this process in itself.
Yeah.
Of like, if we're talking about me, what happened to me, kind of thing. Yeah.
And that's a very good point, because this is how I perceive psychotherapy, that they are exactly what you say, that it's all about me. You know? I'm here the victim, I'm me, I want you to help me, I'm a victim, you know, and of course we know from a higher perspective that's not healing. From a higher perspective, we know that, but they are so in their ego mind that they can't get out of there, and they would be highly disturbed when you say you have to embrace your perpetrator, right? You cannot do that, and that's why Bert Hellinger has been so hated in the 1980s, 1990s, because all his psychotherapist colleagues, they were enraged. I think you still see that. I think when you look up, because he never cared, when you look up Wikipedia about Bert Hellinger, they were very skeptical. They were all writing, the Wikipedia page was written by somebody who, by psychotherapists, really, some old colleagues of him. Very skeptical, very unjust also, had no clue what he was doing. Anyhow, so I remember that then he said, okay, stop this is not a therapy, there is no crossover, it's a complete different thing. That's it. Yeah, because there was no way to combine that. Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
awesome, good.
Sorry,
So
diverted you.
very good. So I follow you is a violation of the third order of love balance. Just to recap, the second order, the first dynamic we looked at, atonement or reparations for my sins, is the violation of the first order. Yeah, belonging. The second dynamic we looked at, rather me than you, is a violation of the second order, precedent. And the I follow you dynamic is a violation of the third order of love balance. So what you see is a deep love to the entangler in this, like in every entanglement, like I showed yesterday. There is always this love bond with the entangler. And then there's also this love to this third person, victim, right? So the one who's entangled has a lot of love. As I said before, he has the most love in the family system at that point, because he takes on to love two family members who can't come together. It's like the Romeo and Juliet thing. Not really. It's not. It's like you have two, they hate each other. It's actually the opposite. Yeah, not hate, but they can't come to each other because they feel this emotion of revenge or guilt or shame or angriness or whatnot. Yeah, but here's the third person, the descendant of the family system, who loves them both. Yeah, who loves them both. So that is at the base of an entanglement, and so this person needs to have a lot of love in order to do that. No. This I follow you dynamic is often children to their parents or grandparents. When I say entanglements do like to skip generations, the I follow you dynamic is you see more from one generation to the other. So I have an example from my own life here. When I was a young lawyer, I was teaming up with a 40-year-old lawyer, and we were opening up a law firm together, and everything was great. He has 4 young boys, 1 to 4, 5 years old by that time. And within the first year, he died in a car accident. And I lost track of the family after a while. And then I heard about, I don't know, 13 years later, that the eldest son on his 18th birthday, where he got in a car accident and died. Yeah. So this is a clear I follow you dynamic. Of course, nobody did, not that I know of, did a family consultation, maybe they have done now. The mother was devastated, of course. It was even worse than losing the husband, losing the firstborn child. So if, just as a matter of example, if she as a mother, or she would be the appropriate person to work on that with family constellation, wouldn't find out what was the original trauma, why her husband went into the death. Yeah, that needs to be found out, because the I follow you dynamic always required an incident before. Yeah. So the I follow you dynamic, in fact, has at least 4 family members. 3 that are entangled and 1 that is following the one who is entangled. right? So in this example, the mother and widow could work on this I follow you dynamic, find out what was the original trauma, and then the chances that a grandchild of hers, one of the 3 surviving boys' children, would not follow and has a car accident and dies would be very high. Right? If this is left unaddressed, I would almost guarantee that one of the grandchildren would do the same. Yeah. And that is the I follow you dynamic. It's very obvious normally. And if the client doesn't say anything about, like if they say, oh, I have suicidal thought, then of course alarm bells goes on and you say, did your father, did your mother committed suicide? And then they would probably say, no, not that I know of, but I don't know my mother. She died very early. I have heard it was an accident. Now, that's probably not true, right? Because people don't want to say often that this is a suicide in the family because they feel shame. So they say it was an accident. But it could be very well a suicide that he didn't know of, right? And then when you consolate it, it would probably look like a suicide. And then you put more generations up and they would probably show that it was actually a long pattern already. A long I follow you pattern. So just because the client doesn't reveal anything to you to start with doesn't mean it is there. They don't know it, maybe. Or they don't connect the dots. Some are, because they are in their own trauma so much, they cannot connect the most obvious dots that everybody can see. Yeah. So that's also, so don't assume the client comes with you with all the information needed, right? That's probably not true. So the I follow you dynamic is very obvious. But to heal it, of course, you need to make sure to find the original trauma and the original dynamic, which was atonement for my sins, or rather me than you. The I follow you dynamic doesn't come, singly on their own, because, there's always somebody who started something for a reason. So this is why you then start to skip generations, maybe because this is intertwined with another dynamic. Yeah. So take this not literally. This is just a hint that the I follow you dynamic is mostly showing up in every generation. How do we know the I follow you dynamic? So I just recap. How did we decipher we have a atonement for my sins dynamic? What do we see? Kimberly? Suman? Whoever? Shoot.
I was going to say belonging, but I don't feel like that's right.
Nope.
No.
Say guilt, feelings of guilt.
Feelings of guilt is a sign for atonement for my sins. What is a sign for the rather me than you dynamic?
Oh.
Yeah.
Isn't that the anger?
Not anger necessarily. Could be also sadness. It is looking down on somebody dead. Looking physically down.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. And the I follow you is also looking at the dead, but not down. It's looking in the distance.
So
I follow you is normally looking at the distance. Yes, Suman.
If I could repeat this quickly, atonement is guilt. Rather me than you is sadness, looking down. I follow you is looking in the distance, like past someone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the case of I follow you, looking in the distance, you would place a representative in the eyesight, like you place a representative by the rather me than you lying down in front of the representative, exactly where they look at, not somewhere in front. They need to see the eyes or the face of the one exactly where they're looking. And this is the same with the one in the distance. You need to place somebody exactly where they are looking at.
Would you ask the representative, could you lay down in front of them, or would you actually just say, I need you to lay down in front of them?
Yeah, you would pick a representative, tell them lie down, and then you would direct them so that they are exactly with the head where the other one is looking at.
And if someone's feeling guilt, is that just sort of a process of elimination because they're not looking down or away, so we just assume
They
that
can
they're
also look down or away, yeah. But if they feel guilt, this is atonement for my sin or theirs, like when they are entangled.
And so people will say, I feel guilty, I'm feeling guilty.
Yep, they would. Sometimes they would, they need a bit of, they would not always start with guilt. They would start with another feeling like anger or sadness or something like that. And then while the family constellation develops, they would actually let this feeling of guilt come up. So it would come up. They would definitely express it at one point. Some start with it, but not necessarily. Yeah.
I have a question. I've not really paid attention to this until as we've moved through these modules. When you're giving a representative a directive, so say please, is there any differentiation between saying say please or can you say please?
Good question. I would probably like to say please, but I realized in the training workshops that the trainees don't feel confident. So they always, can you say please, or can you please say please? That's even worse, but that's what you start with. But once you feel more confident, you definitely want to eliminate as many unnecessary words as possible.
That's what I was feeling more towards, is very minimalistic, direct.
Very, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I find myself, as you were saying, as a trainee, I'm finding myself, can you do this? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And while we're talking about the words, I also try to encourage everyone, well, not trying, I encourage everyone to not use the words yes, please, and thank you other than in the family constellation towards the representatives. So when they said they start to facilitate and they want representatives, then they ask, hey, Suman, can you please be the father? Then, that's not working. Or if in the family constellation, because you say, you are the father, you are the mother, they can say, no, nobody says no, ever. You don't even need to ask, they are there to do that, so there's no need to be polite. And then in the constellation, it's even worse if they ask, can you please say thank you? Like, it's already kind of half of the energy is already gone by doing that, right? So just say thank you, then they may ask to whom, and say thank you to them. That's fine, but more words, probably not, right? Other, there's no rule without exemptions. If you have somebody who is really sensitive, you feel that you in the role as a representative, so like you feel that, then you want to be really gentle with this representative, because that is something that you just feel that you don't want, that you really need to guide them. Yeah. But and then as a rule, I would stay away from too many words. Yeah, especially if they're not necessary. Cool. So I follow you. Mainly fatal accidents, like in my example I just said, and suicide, definitely suicide. If you look at the difference between rather me than you and I follow you dynamics, it is interesting that due to my observation, I'm not sure if Bert Hellinger has talked about that. I'm not sure. But rather, mesoneudynamic seems to attract more slow death, like starving or fatal illnesses or long disease or chronic things, and like something slow, while the I follow you dynamic, I think, are more the ones that are happening really sudden, quickly. Yeah, can be also murder, right? It doesn't need to be suicide, can be also murder or homicide. For example, attempted suicides, I come to see more in a rather mesoneudynamic than in a I follow you dynamic. I come to see that I follow you dynamic is more the successful suicide. Yeah. So, but that's my observation. Just some more observation to share that gives you a hint where to look at. So we have in the I follow you dynamic a direct entanglement with the one who has gone, like the sibling, an abortion, the accident, whatever, like in my father-son example, right? So that's the entanglement with I follow you. And then the third person we always need for the entanglement is the one before that. Yeah. So we cannot stop there. We don't have two. We cannot work with this two. We cannot work in my example with father and son. That goes nowhere. Yeah. So the I follow you dynamic always needs to find the original trauma and the original dynamic that has happened there. And then acknowledging what is at the beginning. So obviously in I follow you dynamic, what needs to be acknowledged is that I'm following you. So that's the acknowledgement. Right? So you would ask then to say, in my example, the son in a family constellation situation, the 18-year-old son, the representative would say to his father, I follow you, I'm going as well. Yeah, that's acknowledging what is. Yeah. And then you will see that the parent doesn't want that. But just through acknowledging it, does the parent has the, like the representative of the parent has the insight that that is actually what has happened and that they don't want that for their children, right? But they can, most likely, they cannot do that before they have not released their entanglement. So you always start at the beginning, not with the client. You start at the beginning where it happened. So you go back and back and back and back until you found it, and then you ravel it down to the current situation. And then the last thing the I follow you dynamic entangler would say is, I'm going as well. And then the father can say, I don't want that. While before he would probably wanting that. Yeah. So that is where you see that this entanglement, the original wound, is cleared. Because now the parent doesn't want that at all. Takes over responsibility for their own action. Then finding what meant would be words like, I honor your destiny, the destiny of the father, because that's done. Yeah. I honor your destiny and leave it with you. I live a little bit longer and then I go as well, because we all go. And if the bond is really strong, most likely they will go where the others are, but not now. They have to live a life before. Yeah. So you use these words when you feel or when you see that they need this bond. Otherwise, they wouldn't let go. Yeah. They rather go in the entanglement and rather die than letting go of the bond with their father. Yeah. So you have to acknowledge this bond. This is not a bad bond. This is a natural bond. Yeah, that we cannot and we will not break. Okay, we have a break. I think we go in the break first and then do our exercise today. I just talk you through. It will be applying the thank you. We are, Chana is not coming today. She has excused herself. She has no time. So we will have two members in the group. And one is a client and the other is representing either parent or a partner. Yeah. And then we do the same as we did before. We applying, after connecting, we applying and observing the dynamic. We applying the thank you. And you know the parent cannot say thank you to the child, but the partners can thank you to each other, or the child can thank you to the parent. And then always check in if it's true. And if you have enough time in this exercise, because the thank you comes really early in the exercise, then you can also ask your partner to represent another role if you wanted to. Yeah, so use your time, 4 minutes or what each has to do that. But we go on the break first, or do you want to do the exercise? I mean, actually, I don't mind. What is up to you?
I have to go to the restroom, so
I do too. I'm like, break, please.
Okay, break. See you in
15
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
Yeah. So, what do you want to share?
I went first, and Suman was my mom. We had enough time to do two, and so she was also my dad. And with my mom, it took a little longer to get there. Like I had to go a little bit deeper within it. It just wasn't, I was saying it wasn't as accessible. Like with my dad, it was like right away. But with my mom, I had to sort of sit with it. And it wasn't, uncomfortable. It was just deeper, I guess. Like it just went a little bit deeper to feel it.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, there was a pause that was happening with mom, where it was such an instant sort of like boom with dad. Just
was it for the mom the same? Or what was it? What was the mom about?
Oh, she's talking about my mom.
Oh,
yeah. As Suman representing, what did she feel?
I felt the pause. I felt the pause. Yeah, I very much felt the pause and just this yeah, I felt the pause where it was pretty immediate with the father. Was able to access it, and I felt we were, from what you're sharing, Kimberly, it was on the same resonance. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good. And then the other way around.
I didn't think I was going to do this, but I had Kimberly be my partner, and I thought that was really interesting. It's always in the peripheral, the background. I wanted to stay with it a little bit, and not because I felt hesitant to say thank you, but there was a part of me that wanted to appreciate the space of having this representation with Kimberly as my partner. And I thought it was a very graceful coming together when the thank you happened. Yeah. I like what Kimberly said. It felt like glitter.
How did it feel? How did it feel, Kimberly?
Well, I was saying it was giving me the flutters. Like I was getting the flutters. Like it, kind of when you blush, like when somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like that.
That's interesting because, of course, when you do the thank you in a relationship, something comes to an end. That doesn't mean it is a relationship. That means it is a phase in the relationship. So it's also, the thank you can also be, or is always also a new beginning. Yeah. And if it's in the same relationship, then it's almost like the new beginning is like a new falling in love, a new, something new which relates to the glitter you are feeling.
That's very spot on for us right now, Maya, whereas we've been together for 12 years, going on 13. And we've reached sort of that moment of like, oh, this is brand new. Like this is this phase in life that we're experiencing. So that's exactly what it is right now for us.
So that was a great gift that you had this thank you, because in normal life you would probably not do that. You know, you would not think about it to let something old coming to an end and embrace the new,
Mhm.
which you now have done, obviously, in this exercise. So that's a very good start. That's also, so when you use thank you in a relationship, in a family constellation, then that's also a start normally for something new, probably not with the same partner, but with a new partner. And without being able to say thank you to the parting partner, there is actually not a new partner. So you see that literally in a family constellation, when you place another representative as the new partner there, right, that there is no interest before this thank you has been said to the old partner, right? So they are not even open to receive you know, the partner if they don't say thank you to the old. So that's interesting as well. Good, awesome, right. So now we talk about trauma. So trauma, of course, in the medical environment is anything that hurts the body, if you will, yeah. And when we talk about trauma, we are talking about emotional trauma, right? That's what we are concerned with. And our trauma that we are concerned with, the emotional trauma is, but also the beginning, it's also an act of violence, yeah. It can be deliberate, it can be accidental, yeah, but it is still an act of violence. So an act of violence has taken place that is causing an emotional trauma, yeah. So the act, so let's say even if the wounds would heal, like say you break your arm, you were falling off a tree, you break your arm, right? Impact, act of violence, the earth is breaking your arm, if you will, yeah. And then there's the shock. There's the shock when you fall and the pain. And then when the arm is healed and everything is good, this shock, this emotional trauma is still there. It doesn't go away. It doesn't heal. It is there. And it will be somewhere, either in the soul or in the body even. So it's manifests itself again, or it is solely stuck in the soul. And this is the kind of trauma that we are working with in family constellation. This trauma can be experienced in one's own life, or it comes from an entangled person, right? Through one of the three dynamics that we know of, yeah, who then themselves has experienced an act of violence that has caused this emotional trauma. A trauma is always the fear of dying, either de facto or perceived. Coming back to the falling from the tree can also cause a death. You can break your neck. Yeah. So the fear is not that your arm breaks. That's not the fear. The fear is that your neck breaks. And that's a shock energy. Otherwise, it wouldn't manifest. It is always a fear of dying that manifests in the soul or even in the body sometimes. Not the fear of something lesser. So every fear can be tracked back to the fear of dying. Every single fear. The fear of spiders, for example, is not the fear of a creature with 8 legs. It's the fear that they bite you and you die. It is sometimes irrational, especially if you live in New Zealand where there is no deadly spiders, yeah? But still it exists, it's a phobia. And when people have this fear, they are screaming like they are really, you think they are murdered when they wake up and they see a spider over their head in their bedroom. It is the fear of dying. Same with fear of heights, very common. Of course, it is not you know, you can be perfectly safe with the balustrade and everything. But the one who has a fear of falling is absolutely convinced the next moment they will fall down there and die. Even if they're standing on a ladder that is only 1.5 meters high. So this perception of the dead, of the perception that one can die from it, makes it a trauma, an emotional trauma. This leaves a deep wound in the soul. And this is past, this wound is past, this is causing an epigenetic malfunctioning in the body. This is how it embeds itself into the body. And this is passed on to the descendants. That's actually a fact, that's a scientific fact that has been discovered about 10 years ago after they dropped their hype, their 30-year-long hype of looking for the master gene and the gene of everything, and gene will fix it all, and every disease has a gene and we just need to fix the gene and then the disease is gone. And then they found out, oopsie, we totally barked up the wrong tree. The gene can be what they are. If they're not turned on, they do nothing. And this turning on mechanism is epigenetic. And now they found out, even if you have a gene, like this poor actress who took off her breast because she got this gene for breast cancer, right? That does nothing if it's not turned on. And that was the big awakening of this multi-trillion-dollar industry, that you can look at genes as much as you want, it doesn't say anything. So then they found out that a trauma, this emotional trauma, is causing indeed an epigenetic damage. And then they found also out that it has been passed on, that can be passed on to the children. And when the family constellation community learned about that, the only thing to say was, well, we knew that all along. Bert Helling showed us that 40 years ago, right? So, but it is also good for you if you discuss family constellation with people on the dinner table or somewhere, you know, just to show them how scientific this method is, right? From the morphogenetic field over the epigenetic inheritance, there is really nothing left to wonder about. No? This is all completely clear, showing itself, where it comes from, how it works. No mystery here. So it needs to be healed in order for the person to go ahead with life, right? Because if it sticks around, there will be suffering. It could be anything. Like it could be an allergy, it could be a disease, it could be prone to suicide, it could be successful, not being successful in the job, not being successful in partnership, not having children, anything really. That is not limited, how this plays out in one's life. And of course, if it's inherited, that doesn't stop there. The descendant has their own traumas, right? And creating their own epigenetic damage that is then passed on to their children. So it gets more and more and more, more and more and more. That not necessarily means that every descendant has 3 or 4 or more issues to deal with. It could be also just one severe one, right? Like a chronic disease, like a muscle deterioration, or a really bad form of allergy to food that you can barely eat anything, or something like that, right? It just gets more severe and severe in the generation. It is the emotional trauma is also what we see in an interrupted movement towards the mother or the father, right? That's just the same. It's an early childhood trauma. And I cannot say whether that is actually genetic inheritance. I'm not sure about that, actually. I never thought about that. Maybe not. But as we can see, it is definitely passed on through the generations as a form of, as a pattern. Right? I would probably not say it's an epigenetic inheritance. I just answered my own question because it always appears in the same way, the interrupted movement. It's always the same. You see always the same. It's the same trauma, and the trauma is passed on because the mother who hasn't received the love of her mother because she had an interrupted movement towards her mother cannot pass it on. That's it. So that's it. But it is the same trauma. It is an early childhood trauma that is causing the interrupted movement. And that's also the perceived death. The child perceives whatever's happening as dying. Even the fetus, right? So I have several constellations with clients who have thought about aborting a child. No, not clients, mothers who have thought about aborting a child, who came traumatized as an adult because that was the first interrupted movement towards the mother, because they get in shock, you know, because they, of course, they know everything from the mother because they are one with her, so they pick up from the field what she's about, and this fear of dying is the first interrupted movement towards the mother, and so on. So that doesn't stop. That doesn't even start at the birth, even before. So the trauma is this fear of dying, but it does have also the quality of guilt or shame. If you think of the boy falling out the tree, they might feel guilty that they just climbed on the tree to start with, yeah? Or the woman that is thinking about aborting a child is ashamed of the thought of it in retrospective, and then this feeling is picked up by the child as well, right? So it is often disguised, so we cannot say a trauma is linked to a certain emotion. Every emotion that is vibrating low can be because of a trauma. So we talked already about epigenetic inheritance, just briefly. So if this is a topic that interests you, I definitely recommend that you look more into it. It's really fascinating, especially from the knowledge of family constellation and the background and how you use it. So epigenetic means on top of the genes. So it's overlying the genes. It is a mechanism that turns on a gene and turns it off. For example, if you're small, you know how little the noses of the babies are, although the heads are quite big, but the noses are so little and tiny, right? Like a little pea or something. And then there is a gene in the body of everyone who says nose grow, yeah? So then the nose grows to what we carry with us now, yeah? But imagine the gene wouldn't be turned off at one stage. Where would we be now, right? Well, how would we all look, right? With a nose of 2 meters long or something. So this gene, nose grow, is there. Everybody has it, but it needs to be turned on and off appropriately. And that's epigenetic. They turn on and off the genes. And that has to do with proteins and environment. And that's, you know, so, and that's how far I go here. And if you're interested, look at it more closely. That's fascinating. So that's exactly what happens there. And then when this is damaged, then the gene doesn't turn on or off properly. And this is causing a disease or something, an imbalance in the body. So the inheritance means nothing else, that this damage is passed on down from generation to generation, but the damage is not like in this silly example with the nose growing. It's not the nose growing epigenetic that is passed on. It's a epigenetic damage that can damage another gene, right? So we cannot track it back. It's not that everybody has long noses in this family. with this damage, and that makes it so inaccessible. If you just look at the symptoms, this is why you need family constellation to find that out. What was the source of it? So this trauma is causing an epigenetic damage that is then inherited, passed through generation. And the example that I like to do is like the world wars. Let's say there is a soldier in the First World War who had to kill a lot of people and is of course afraid to die as well. So there's a lot of trauma going on, comes home, has a child, a son that is, you know, maybe this person in the world, he has depression, let's say, severe depression, has a son, the son grows up, the son has not depression, the son maybe has like a chronic ear infection, just to say something. Now this son goes to the Second World War. He has the same experience. No, he has to kill people. He's afraid of his life, afraid of the life of his comrades. So he is highly traumatized, right? He comes back. He's still got this chronic ear infection, and now he has on top, let's say, an allergy to nuts, just to mention something. Now he has a son, and this son has neither a chronic ear infection nor an allergy to nuts. But this son has inherited all these epigenetic damages, and he now might have whatever. He might have he's always caught in an accident, right? He has one accident after the other. He always breaks his bones. You know, whatever he does, he's always the one who has the accident. Yeah, that is the result of this epigenetic damages. It doesn't need to be the same. Now this one comes, this person comes to the workshop and says, I don't know what's going on. I'm always breaking my bones. There's nothing wrong. My bones are fine, but I always get caught up in this incident where I break my bones and I cannot live like this. You know, I cannot barely work. Nobody wants to date me. Whatever. That's his problem. And then you track it back through the war situation with the help of the representatives who would show this dynamic. Okay, finding what meant. Here we are now finally by the core of our module. What are we actually doing in family constellation to make all this happen? So we use our words that we have learned, very powerful. We use gestures, yeah, with the hands mainly, maybe with the feet, maybe with the head, gestures. We use eye contact, and we use body movement, the whole movement of the body. That's actually in our toolkit. That's what we do. So we are not applying the words just because the words are healing. We are applying the words so the movement, the soul can move. Just talking in the family constellation does do nothing. That is the initiation for a new movement of the soul, a new recognition that the soul has a choice now to move, to do something different, to go towards healing. So we have to have the movement. But the movement is only taking place normally because of what has been said.
And Maya, for the concentration of the words, it really is, you know, the yes, please, thank you, and then also the sentences that support.
Resolution.
Yeah. Okay.
Bert Helling has once said that he has revolutionized this psychotherapy, where he has been hated for, because he can solve every case with 3 words. Just yes, please, and thank you. That's all the clients need. And that's actually true. That was in the early stage. That's actually true. That's all you need. But then the soul needs to move, right? So we have the words, the strong words, then we have words that's strengthening that you can also use. Now, go, stay, look at, only. These are words that you can add that are actually strengthening. Then we have, of course, words that weaken it. And these are the buts, no, not now, maybe, sometimes, and later. While we don't use the first three, we can use the later ones very sparingly. We never use but, no, and not. Yeah. But is a no, so we don't use that in our sentences. We don't use no and not. The morphogenetic field cannot really understand a negative, yeah, a not. It can only understand a flow, a positive, something that is flowing, not something that is not flowing. So when the representative wants to say to somebody, I love you not, I don't love you, yeah, we would ask them to translate it into I hate you. Yeah. Just as a matter of example. Or if somebody wants to say, I like you, but I don't want to go to you. No, we would ask them to say, I see you, and I need a little bit of time, and then I come. Important is, often overlooked at the beginning, is to reverse and rephrase. That's very powerful. So one representative says, you are angry because, they see that in the other they are looking at. They see anger and they say, ooh, you are angry. I see you are angry. Yeah. You would ask them, because they shouldn't talk about others. They should resonate with themselves. Yeah. So you would ask them to rephrase it and say, you make me feel angry. And then, of course, you ask if it's true. And they would most likely say, yes, that feels true. And then you can rephrase again and say, now say, I am angry. And that's what they say. Because they only see the anger in others because they feel their own. And that goes in life as well. It's only a reflection of their own hidden anger. So rephrasing is really important. Then we have, of course, talked about the little sister. Yeah, that goes very well. Even though, not yet, just a little bit is okay. That's not a negative. That's not a no. It's just not the full yes. It's just the little yes, the little word. And that's totally fine to use and very necessary often when the full expression is not available to a representative. Then we have the can'ts versus won'ts. Won'ts, that's also rephrasing. If somebody said, I can't look over there, then you say, please, or not please, but then you say, I will not look over there. That is more powerful. Then they own it. And then they understand, oh, why do I not want to look over there? Like, there's something then more intriguing than I can't look over there. What about screaming, coughing, vomiting, and laughing in a family constellation? What do you think? What does that mean? What words do we use instead of these expressions? Any idea?
Screaming seems more of anger. Would this collectively be all one word, Maya, or can they represent different words?
No, there can be different things. Yeah.
Laughing, I think, would be love. Vomiting would be disgust. Coughing would probably be not comfortable.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, very good. Thank you for trying. It was great. In a family constellation situation, screaming is not really angry, it's a hurt. So screaming is an unbearable hurt, victim energy. Yeah. Coughing is a substitute for something not being able to say. So a word is missing. Could be either yes, thank you, or please. Any of those. Vomiting is just a sign of releasing negative energy. So you would allow vomiting. You would say, when someone say, oh, I really feel sick, you would say, that's fine, you can vomit. We clean up the floor. They never do that. But you know, make them confident so they can really release what needs to be released. It's a releasing, it's a good thing. And laughing is something really interesting in a family constellation. You know how contagious laughing is? And like you said, Suman, it's laugh. It's like it feels so positive. Now, in the family constellation situation, when a representative is starting to laugh, it's any but friendly. But why it is so contagious that everybody starts to giggle, you know, and all of a sudden the whole group is laughing, and maybe the facilitator as well. Then you have lost the plot. What is in fact going on is very, very serious. And the representative who is laughing is trying to disguise that. So what you would say is, if this laughing is taking place and everybody else starts to laugh as well, you would not laugh, and you would stop them, and you would say, this is very serious. And they would stop laughing. And then the representative who started the laughing, he will also, you know, when he cannot divert the attention anymore, he will also then reveal the true feeling that is covered up by the laughing. I'm talking about when one is laughing like hysterically or something. If you are at the end of a family constellation and you already have found the peak and you are about to break it up and everybody is happy about what it is, that's not what I'm talking about. That's fine, of course, no. But at the beginning, when you're constellating and one representative starts to laugh, then that is the scenario I was just painting here.
And Maya, you would never say stop laughing. You would just pause and say, this is serious. Like you would never want to direct them to stop laughing, even though that's what you want them to do. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see how that would be shaming.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. The only time I say stop, and I have to think about that. The only time there are two incidents when I really say stop to a representative. One is if they are representing a mother in an interrupted movement, they want to rush to their child, I ask them to stop. And the other is basically when they start to chit chat, when they starting to say things unasked, then I would stop them, definitely. But I don't think in other. Third thing, we talk about that movements when they run too fast, when they move around in the room too fast, then I would also ask them to slow down. Yeah. There's also strength in no words. Don't forget that. Very powerful. So Bert Hellinger has, in his later years, has discovered the power of no words, and he had the constellations I was present in, where he was sitting there. He was not talking a word. He was just sitting on his chair. He would ask 20 representatives to come up. He would not tell anything, and he would just observe how they move around. And it is a long constellation, over an hour. He normally doesn't do that, but these are long constellations. And they were not allowed to talk a word, and they would just move around, and things will happen, and people would go on their knees, and you wouldn't have a clue what's going on. But the client feels then a relief after an hour or so. And then he breaks up the constellation. And it's beautiful to see if you are really into it. It's not very pleasant for spectators because they have no clue what's going on. And that is also not revealed in the end. So it's boring, if you will, and not very popular, of course. And it also takes a lot of people and a lot of time. So the whole constellation with no words, I would probably stay away. But to use the strength of no words when you feel the energy is really powerful, that's great. Right? To just be able to sit there and not saying anything, don't allow anybody to say anything for a few minutes, and let just unfold what you have observed is about to immerse is great. So that's actually very powerful. And as you already know now, after module 2 and talking about that, family constellation facilitator are not saying much. So it is not a stage for people who want to express themselves, right? It is really very, it's a beautiful work with little work, as little as possible words. Yeah, we don't use negative words, and we wouldn't allow our representatives to use them. That is including swear words or slang. We don't want slang. We don't want swear words. They have no power. So when a representative says, "Ah, what an asshole," yeah, then you would say to them, rephrase that and say, "I hate you," or "I despised you," or whatever is appropriate. Yeah, or "I judge you." Right? That's important that you don't let that slide. If they start to use their slangs, you go into a chit-chat situation very soon. Because they feel comfortable in it, and of course they're not connected to the field when they say something like that. Because the morphogenetic field is not using these words. The morphogenetic field is using words that has been used for centuries. Right? It's very old, if you will. Emphasizing and rephrasing are really, really great tools. So emphasizing or amplifying, let's say emphasizing, amplifying are more gestures. Emphasizing would be if somebody says, I think I feel a little bit sad. Then you would ask them to say, I feel sad to start with. Okay, they say I feel sad. Then you would ask them to say, I feel so sad. And they would repeat that, I feel so sad. They would pause, and they would feel, oops, that's actually changing something. And then you would actually maybe emphasize it even more and say, I am so desperate. I'm so desperate. Yeah. And then they would probably start, to release through tears rolling or something. The emphasizing is really, really important. And of course, the rephrasing of slang words and everything that has no power. Any sentence that comes. This is why you don't allow a representative to talk. You ask them to raise their hand and talk to you quietly, like with a low voice, to what they want to say, and then you ask them to rephrase it into the powerful word. That's what they then say. There is such a thing as freedom. I think it's called freedom constellation or something like that, where the representatives are jumping in and out of constellations as they want and say what they want, basically, right? And I have I have seen a video. I don't even know how I came across it, but I assure you that has nothing to do with a family constellation. That is just a feel-good workshop where everybody can do what they want and express their emotions, and has nothing to do with connecting to the morphogenetic field. Like, because there is this idea that the morphogenetic field is everything, and everything that happens is okay. Yeah. And you know, in theory that's correct, but only if you're working with it. Right? The morphogenetic field is not there when you have your feel-good workshop, right? Where everybody does what they want to do, because who has invited whose family has invited the morphogenetic field to come and share information here? No, that's not defined enough. It's not structured enough. It's not so the morphogenetic field is looking for orders, right? And this is why that doesn't work. Okay, let's talk about gestures. We have hands up, down, and fist is basically what you see, right? So hands up is more, it's like in normal life, it's more an offering. So somebody wants to give, mainly parents. It's a yes, you know, if you will. Yeah. If the hands down, I actually don't see that, but hands are hanging down, yeah, is a form of relaxation, which is great. A lot of representatives are doing this or this, and you have to ask them to release their hands and put the arms down. It's really important because they really cannot connect properly if they are tense. Yeah. And you would wonder how many people are uncomfortable just dangling their hands. It is like they want to put it in pockets, or they want to interlace fingers, or it's so weird. Like who can comfortably just dangle their heads naturally? So that, but you have to insist to the representative to do that. And then fist, of course, is always a sign for anger, aggression, or anything like this. Now, a fist is very obvious, but it could be also somebody's kind of pumping. That is what you see often. So you have to ask then, why do you do? What do you feel? You know, what emotion? And then they would stop, and then they would do it again, and then you would suggest, do you feel anger? Yeah. Or do you? So you ask them what that means, but in the end it would be anger. So you can also just go with it and continue with the constellation. Then we have the head. The head can basically go up, down. It can be tilted to either side, or it can circle around. Now the circling around is a sign of this psychosis, schizophrenia. It's either the head is circling around, or the whole body is circling around, or the people are circling through the room quickly. So that's a sign that in this family there is this case of schizophrenia. When the head is tilted, it's a sign of insecurity, of course. Either way. The head up, I come to believe that the head up is looking for God. That's what they do normally. When they have the head up, then I always ask for the religious background of the family, and it is often okay. And the head down is normally not so much ashamed. It's more bowing down. It's more, respecting somebody else. It could be being ashamed, but I feel that is not. No, it's not really the head. It's more the emotion is expressed more through words normally, and then gestures. We have the feet. We have stamping feet, sometimes tremor feet. Stamping feet is often just one stamp. So you, as always, you need to observe very closely and get the fine information, because you barely have somebody who's stamping. You normally have one stamp, so you have to notice that. And then you would ask the representative to stamp their feet deliberately, and then and then the energy will come out and the feeling they have, right? And then they can have tremors. Tremors is like in normal life, it's a sign of a trauma. So if there's a tremor, then you can see, oh, victim energy. That seems to be the victim. The tremor can also be in the hand, but it can be in the, most often it's in the feet or in the leg. Let's move on to the face. We have smiling faces that could be in a context of a parent towards the children is naturally giving, or to a partner is love. So the smile is in general what it is, yeah, affection normally. Frowning could be really anything. Don't think the representatives often think that that's them, so not representing a family member, that's them, that they are, that's not the case. They are connected with the field, they are frowning, they don't know what's going on. That's not an ego thing. That's happening in the field. A sweaty face can, of course, happening. That is either release of energy or that's fear. So you see that in the context, what it is actually. But it is not because the room is hot. If not everybody is sweating, right? If everybody is sweating, okay, the room is too hot. But if it's only one sweating, definitely not. Here we have the amplifying of small gestures, as I said, with the stamping. If you see a gesture, like the stamping, for example, or the fist, ask them to make it stronger. So the underlying emotion can come up and they can share it. And then, of course, we have the overall body language, right? That is always a hint. Are they open? Are they closed? Are they, what do you get from this body language? So don't look only at details, also look at the whole body. It also gives you a hint what kind of emotional state the representative is expressing. Then we have eye movement. So the eyes can be closed, of course, or open. So when the eyes are closed and the person is standing up, you have to ask them to open the eyes, because you only work with representatives when the eyes are open. However, when they lie down, they can have their eyes closed, because that is indicating a person who has died and who is at peace. So a person who is lying down and have the eyes open is dead, but not at peace. Sometimes they don't know that they are dead. And then you have to tell them that they are dead. When a representative doesn't want standing up, doesn't want to open their eyes, that is in very rare occasion in information from the field, because the field wants to see. So you would ask the representative who has the eyes closed and refuses to open them to lie down. Because most likely they are dead and they don't know how to express it. So they should lie down and keep their eyes closed. If they also don't want to do that, then you have to insist that they open their eyes. To avoid that, the representatives are often, they want to tune in. They are used to tune in by closing their eyes. And then they think they need to get anything. And they are waiting for this moment. And this is why they don't want to open the eyes, because they think they are not ready yet. They think they're still waiting of, I don't know, a lightning or an insight, a word. I don't know what they are waiting for something. So in order to avoid this misconception of what especially the new one, of what a representative is doing, I always ask at the beginning of the work of the constellation to everybody close their eyes and take a breath and connect, and then everybody open the eyes. So no exemption. So everybody has to open their eyes, regardless if they feel ready or not. Because I know when they are ready. They don't know that. All right. So the eye contact can be towards somebody, away from somebody. It could be up or down, or it could be into the distance. That's what you normally get from eyes. Obviously, eye contact towards someone is where you can work with. You cannot work with a representative who's not looking at the other, right? So they need to look, and then they can say. They cannot talk to the wall, right? That doesn't mean that the one who is receiving has to look, but the one who's talking has to look, of course, in the direction they are talking. Away from someone is always a sign of if you know that this dynamic, if you expect that, and then somebody's looking away, of course, that is a sign of avoidance. If the eyes go up like this, they are thinking, and representatives don't answer from their experience. They want to answer from the intellect a question. So their eyes go up. So you know immediately, oh no, they are thinking. So you would ask them maybe to close their eyes even, or look down or something, change something, and then just tell them what they fear, not what they think. What they fear is more important. If the eyes look down, we know that now they're looking at somebody dead. And you have to take from the concept, from the constellation so far, is this a mother looking at a dead child? Is this an entangled person looking at a victim? You know, you have to find these things out by further inquiring. But definitely always put where they're looking at a representative to represent the dead person. And then looking into the distance, that is where a person is missing. So you have to place a representative into the distance. Most often, I follow you dynamic, put a representative into the distance, and then you see and take it from there. We talked about cannot open eyes. That's what happens. What is about tears? Now, tears is a sign of releasing emotional energies, which is great. So tears are great. Tears are allowed. Tears are allowed as long and as often as they want to flow. This is why you need a lot of tissues in your workshops or in your one-on-one sessions, because that's actually what you want. You want these emotional energy to be released. So tears are great. I have never had any, I cannot remember anything else than a release when tears are flowing. So I think that's pretty much it. And then we have the movement, the whole body movement. So the movement can be towards a person or away from a person. Like towards a person is of course reconnecting, of course, and then away from a person can be either backwards or the person turns around and leaves. Right? This is two different meanings. The person who goes backwards from another person feels a bond and is afraid of it, right? So there's a bond. If a person turns around and walks away, the bond is not there. It's either finished or was never there, right? So there's two different meanings and different ways to work with in this case. Of course, sometimes representatives walk out of the door. So what are we doing with this? Well, we let them walk out of the door. That's fine. They can walk out of the door. You don't need to worry about them. They're fine outside. You continue with your constellation. Working out of the door is literally meaning, okay, something has finished and nothing is left, and it's really, you know, they are really literally want to go. Yeah. So that's fine. Don't worry about them. Don't forget to bring them in later when the family constellation is finished, so they're not missing out on the rest of the workshop. So what happens if a representative goes back to the seat? So that can have two meanings. Either the representative clearly feels there's nothing to do in this constellation for him, and that's fine. Or that's part of the movement of the field. Then in the second occasion, you would ask them to come back, because if they're sitting on the chair, they are not part of the constellation. and you want them also to stand up or lie down. You don't want people sit on chairs in a constellation. Yeah, the energy is not flowing when they sit. They can sit on the floor. So if somebody is sitting on the chair and you know it's still needed for the constellation, you would ask them to come back and sit on the floor. They might have a cushion or something, but not a chair. And then yeah.
Sorry, Maya. I was going to ask, most of what I've experienced in family constellation so far has been online. Traditionally, in group settings in person, it is like sort of a floor opera workshop. Okay.
Yes, it is. Yes. That's traditionally the case. What else is there? We have movement in circles again. That's this schizophrenia thing, right? You will not have that very often, but if you see it, you know what it is. Yeah, there's nothing you can do, really. You should ask them to maybe leave the room and call them back when this constellation is over. Yeah, if they cannot sit, or you know, aha, it's schizophrenia, and if they can stand still, then they can stay. Yeah, but you cannot deal with this moving around the whole time. Then sitting down, that's fine. Most often when a representative wants to sit down, they are representing a child, maybe a child that hasn't died yet, or maybe a child that is dead, but really wants to be part of the family. So that's most often why a representative wants to sit down. Lying down is fine. They feel they are dead. That's fine. They should lie down. If most often they don't lie down in front of you, they kind of crumble and go in their knees, and they don't know what to do. So you can say, follow your movement, follow your movement. You can lie down if that's where you want to go. So just encourage them to follow their movement so they come to the full expression of the movement, so you know what to do with it. Kneeling is the sign of religious, similar to the head up. So if somebody falls on their knees, I mean, you will see it. That can also be to make themselves small as a child. So you would ask them to follow the movement. They may want to sit down in the end, or if they really want to kneel, and maybe even looking up, you know, you are dealing with a religious context here, and you might have to add this religious god as a representative to get things moving. You have fast movements. They are not from the field. They're not allowed. Every movement that comes from the field is slow. And you can ask your representatives to go back where they are and start the movement again step by step. So every step they take, they have to pause and check if this is enough, or do they have to take another step. So every step counts. Very important that they're not rushing it. And then you have no movements. That's always an interesting one. And we will talk about that so first of all, if it's no movement, nothing is moving, and you're observing and nothing is moving, then you might break it up, right? Because whatever happens there, there's nothing you can do. It's just, it is what it is. However, there is some cases where you can do something, which we will talk later in the training about. But in general, don't shy away to break up constellations when you don't know what to do with it, because you can be assured something has happened already, and it will continue. Okay, we are at the end of our module 2 now. So I have a couple of questions for you. What was the topic of module 2? You can unmute and just shoot.
I feel like the bulk of it. Oh, go ahead, Kimberly.
Go ahead, Suman.
Go.
For me, contextually, Maya, it was very much giving me a sense of how to recognize as a facilitator what is coming up. I don't know if that's your exact question, but for me, yeah, this gave me a lot more in having now witnessed 2 different formal family constellation workshops, and then having to come into one that was a trainee one, it's giving me a lot more clarification of how you pivot as a facilitator, recognizing all these gestures, words, presentation, feelings, things like that.
Mhm.
That's my biggest takeaway from module 2.
Very good. So that was question 3.
Oh.
Very good. Yeah, very good. Who wants to answer question 1 then?
I think it was the system dynamics, which were the atonement and the
Mhm.
follow you and the rather me than you.
Mhm.
And then going into each of those, sort of how to identify them, and the words that mend, we learned about that, like how to identify it and then work through it and then clear it, how to heal it.
Yeah. In short, finding what men
Finding what mends, yeah.
was the topic. Good. So was this already the 3 things you have learned? 2, I think you said, Kimberly. What would be the 3rd thing?
Okay, so I learned identifying,
Dynamics?
right, identifying the dynamics and the order of the words,
Yeah.
how to apply those, and kind of how to uncover what's going on, how to
True.
through gestures and
Mhm.
body language and
Mhm.
words, through the statements by, can you say this, or does
Yeah.
that feel real? The testing, I guess you were calling like the testing questions.
Mhm. Very good. And Suman, what 3 things have you learned in this module?
all of the same what Kimberly mentioned, and I will add to that, recognizing how to bring it back to the space versus when people get distracted.
Mhm.
Because that's something that I was curious about, like if they laugh or if they leave the room or the Zoom or whatever, recognizing how to bring it back and being in a space of directness and not necessarily feeling like you need to fix it.
Mhm. Very good. Very good. And Kimberly, what has interested you the most?
Well, what's interested me the most is, and I'm the most confused on, so I need to really just like go and study it and try to understand it, is like entanglement and interrupted movements. I don't completely understand those yet.
Mhm.
I
That's also too early. That's no problem at all.
Okay, good. Because I can't,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very abstract to me, and
Yeah.
I have a hard time with the abstract.
No, that's too early in module 2, but that's good that you are interested in it the most. It's very, of course, important part of facilitating, and be assured in the course of the next year that will all become very clear to you.
Good. That's a
Mm.
relief, for sure.
Okay, so what do you want to apply in your daily routine now from module 2? Is there anything that has caught your attention that you want to change in your life from
Mhm.
today on? What would that be, Suman?
I think coming back to the space of recognizing how I show up with my words. So
Mhm.
sorry, please, and thank you. Most
Mhm.
specifically, sorry. And
Mhm.
then, shoot, I just lost it. There was another one I had. Oh, directness. I tend to get very wordy at
Mhm.
times,
Mhm.
over explaining things. So
Mhm.
I would like to continue practicing directness.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. That's an amazing intention. Well done. All the best with that, Suman. And Kimberly, what is with you? Anything?
Well, I'm kind of same along the lines as Suman with the words. And you challenged us this weekend to do that, and I've been doing that with my kids because they're just around.
Yay!
And
Tell me about it.
And so, I've been doing things because normally I'm like, come here, give me a hug, or, I'll just go hug them. And so now I'm just testing things and saying, like, can I give you some love, and just to see if I get that yes. And then I do. And then they come to me and they give me,
Wonderful.
and then it was kind of funny because I was practicing that yesterday with my 7-year-old. And then he was just sort of playing with me and he's like, Mom. And I'm like, what? And he's like, Mom, what? When they keep doing this back and forth thing. And then finally he just said, thank you. And it just, I was just like, I don't know. It's kind of a funny little feel good moment. So
Yeah, wonderful. That's great. I like that. That's really lovely. Yeah. Okay, very good. So what's up next is check the community calendar. There are workshops coming up. I think the next one is an open workshop that you need to book with your coupon codes. Kimberly, you check your Gmail and send it to me again, so we make sure we have the same Gmail, so you can access all the information, start to study, start to read, start to watch the videos, and of course you can also practice with each other, right? Maybe you want to have some WhatsApp appointments, dates where you can, do some stuff together that you want, if you wanted to. And then we will see you on the open workshop. Then there will be a practice workshop later on. I'm not quite sure if we have module 3 before or after that.
it's module 3's before.
Module 3. So then there would be the open workshop, and then there would be module 3, right? And of course, the video recordings will be available by the end of the week around that time. Oh no, hang on, I'm traveling. Sorry, it won't be the end of the week. It will be the end of next week. The video recordings. And then you can rewatch them before module 3 as well. Yeah. So lots of homework to do. Keep you busy.
Quick question, Maya, really quick. The module 3, because that's the one that I had signed up for, and then it undid it.
Yeah,
sent
that
me
was
this
strange. But
But when I
are you
tried No, it doesn't let me re-sign up online. And it shows that you have 2 modules that weekend. That's March 17th, 18th, and 19th. It
Yeah.
shows you have 2 different module 3s, and I'm trying to sign up for the one that's 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
The one that you
And
are
that-
now, the time.
Yeah. And so,
Why
but
does
it
that
won't.
not work?
I don't
You
know.
use your coupon code,
Yes, I use my coupon code, and it doesn't.
and you
work.
haven't be able to sign up. I don't understand that.
I had already signed up for it, but then it says it no longer existed. And then also there were 2 different times in there on it. One
Okay, let us
time
quickly check that. That's strange. Let me